Executives, they get excited about outcomes, about business value. Um, us, project managers and PMO leaders, we get excited about projects. There is a real gap there.
Welcome to the Disgruntled PM Podcast, your weekly therapy session for the chaotic world of project management, transforming daily frustrations into real action. Welcome, everybody. I'm Trevor, joined today by my guest and I'll say project professional celebrity, Dr. Tony Prensa. So, Dr. Tony, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience for probably the 5 people that may not know who you are?
Okay, thank you very much, Trevor, for having me here. So my name is Tony. I would say that a lot of people, they know me by Dr. Tony. I do a lot of things in the academic world. So I've been in the academy for more than 35 years. But in addition to that, so I am a practitioner. So the people say, oh, so you are a doctor, so you are more in the theoretical parts of the profession. But I had the opportunity to be a practitioner from a very young age. I started in information technology, specifically in software development, when I was a teenager. So I started when I was 17 years old. In the mainframe era, COBOL, assembly, Fortran, those kind of legacy languages. But I had the blessing of being working nonstop in different organizations, different industry sectors, financial, telecommunication, retail, services. So that's what I call it a blessing because I never got laid off from any company. So I always been working, changing from one organization to the organization. So my focus have been, I was a project manager without knowing I was a project manager. That's how we used to call it in the 80s. The accidental project managers. Anyone that was good at what they do, the engineers or software developers, or if you are good at what you do, so you can lead projects. And that's how I started. But after that, so I'm with PMI for more than 28 years. I think I joined PMI in the 1994, something like that. I got my PMP in 1996. But I always have been passionate about methodologies and processes and how to make organization better. So that another thing that you see the PMI talent triangle that they talk about business acumen. But I always was passionate about helping business to do better. And that's a little bit about me. So I've been working different things. I was born in Dominican Republic, but most of my professional career was developed in Puerto Rico. And from Puerto Rico, I moved to Texas, and then I worked for Walmart in Northwest Arkansas, FIS Global, and then many other organizations around the country and in other countries as a consultant. I worked as a consultant for many years, traveling different places in Central, Latin America, and other countries.
Well, you brought up something there in your introduction, and it's off script, but I wanted to tackle it with you because I know you've been in the profession for probably almost as long as I've been alive. And it's something that's fascinated me that I've kind of only seen really coming to the surface in the last, we'll say, 5 to 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, up until about the last 5 years, everybody always said, I became an accidental PM. I came in backwards, forwards, sideways. There's always some descriptor to how they became a PM.
Mm-hmm.
And as of recently, I've kind of noticed this the last 5 to 6 years that it's becoming a profession that people come into out of college. And I always said that what made the best PMs in the past was you had a profession prior to becoming a project manager. So you learned a lot of how the corporate world works before you had to learn how to do all those soft skills as a PM. And I'm kind of curious from your experience, because you saw it a lot longer than I have, how you're seeing that transition work, or even just what you're seeing in the industry and from your perspective.
Yeah, definitely. You are right. That's the name accidental project manager came from, because your profession wasn't a project manager. Project manager wasn't a profession like today. I teach for a university, and so we have master degrees in project management. There are bachelor degrees in project management. There are PhDs in project management. A couple of universities in Switzerland, they have PhD in project management and project management office. So that became a career. But the things I write a lot about that. Some people sometimes it's controversial, because people they say, "What you saying that project management as a career will disappear?" But I think that we are transition more going back to what matters. So how you deliver value to the organization is more about the profession. It's like PMI has it in the talent triangle. So we talk about business acumen, and in the other side of the triangle we talk about power skills. So what I say, people, so focus on those two sides of the triangle, and leave the ways of working to AI, because that's not going to happen. AI is going to take over all the deterministic, the repetitive processes and those kind of things. We a little bit of judgment. So that's how I see the profession moving. So I'm calling not project management, I'm calling project leadership. And you will see all my articles that I'm writing is to, I would say, to frame the concepts that you need to become a leader more than management. Because organization, they would need management. AI is going to take over that.
Yeah, one of my most recent, popular for me at least, posts was talking about that we spend so much time in the project professional world arguing over soft skills, over the communication, over the stakeholder management, all these things. We seldom forget that the project is required to deliver something. Mm-hmm. And that is what we're rated on, not on how smoothly everything went in the background. It's, did we deliver?
Exactly. Yeah. By the way, it's in the way back home after my doctoral appointment. So something came out to my mind. So I write a lot of things because I have impromptu thoughts. And then so I always have my phone and recorder. So before I forget about the idea, I record this. Then later when I come home, so I start elaborating on that. So the thought that I got in the way home was, so we have a gap. Executives, they get excited about outcomes, about business value. Us, project managers and PMO leaders, we get excited about projects. There is a real gap there. And that has been the problem that we always have, that we focus too much. I said, because I used to be that way too. I get excited because I was technical. So every time that we have a new operating system, so that got me excited, a new computer language, a new methodology. So, but that doesn't make sense, because we don't add value with tools and techniques, with methodologies. We add value delivering something, as you mentioned. And then that's how I'm going to write another article about that. So we are doing the wrong things. It's like you are invited to a party, but you really, you are more excited about the bringing, let's say, the stuff for the party, but not really about the enjoying the party.
And if you're lucky, you bring the thing that you were actually told to bring, and not just whatever you felt like bringing.
Exactly. That's sometimes that happens. Oh, but I told you that you need to bring the wine, and you brought
I show up with
the
paper
bread.
towels.
Exactly.
So with that, there's something that you kind of touched on there, and I know you're very heavily involved with the PMI as an authorized trainer and everything else, but I know that there's an ongoing battle right now, especially with the new PMI structuring of project managers are supposed to understand the business value of the project and ROI and everything else. And in a way, doesn't that go antithetical to the premise of a project versus a program?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. So, and that's is changing. So, I always exploring. So I have the time. I have the time now. Before when I worked for corporate, I didn't have the time to go over it. But I check everything. So I have certain people that I follow. So if you follow what Pierre Lemain is saying, so he's talking about that. Where are we heading to? So we are changing the definition of project success. So for when I started as a project manager in the early 80s, so project success was about delivering on time, according to the budget, according to the specification or scope. But now that's not it is. So we need to focus on please our stakeholders, our executives, our leadership with things that they are satisfied about or what they are excited about. So that's how it's changing a lot about the definition of project success in our career, and that's how that we need to continue preparing for that because it's not something that you like a music that you learn to play by ears. So you need to prepare that. So the leadership. That's what I'm talking a lot about those things uh, that you need to have. I talk a lot about executive presence, and so a lot of people they don't know about executive presence. What it is? Is that communication? Is that appearance? Is all of that? It's about influencing because as a project manager, as a PMO leader, we live by influencing. So that requires a lot of set of skills to do it. And that's I've been doing. So my last book, I have my book here. So it is about, I use my last name, but each letter is a pillar that we need. When you put all of those things together, purposeful leadership, resilience, empathy, because we still work with people and we work for people. Having the systemic mindset about things that you need to see, things not what you see in your eyes, but you need to see a broader view. That means the connection, interfaces, the dependency. So that's what makes you a leader, that you have that visionary thinking. So that's what I put together in that framework that I call it the operating system for modern leadership. I call operating system because I came from the technical background. So I always, I would say, I love the concept of what operating system does for a computer. It's the orchestrate everything. So that's the framework that I put together in that book.
Well, and if you think about it too, an operating system is the baseline of understanding of how to make things function at the bare minimum level. It doesn't mean you can't add to it and you can't customize the user experience or the user interface to make it more of what you're looking for. Because that's one of the things I've found with Agile, because I've had a lot of Agile practitioners and coaches on, and we always argue about people do it wrong. But we're saying you're doing it wrong because just like with the exam and everything else, we're learning how to do these fundamentals. I call it the science of project management in a sterile environment by the book. And then you take that sterile framework or operating system even, and then you move it over to the real world, and the real world is messy, chaotic, and things are rarely as plain and simple as they are in the textbook.
Exactly, definitely. It's very different. So what you deliver and the process. So for example, you talk about Agile versus, like, call it no waterfall. Now that's a bad word to use, but it's predictive versus adaptive. So we are having a fight, like we are in different religion. So you have on one side the agilist, in the other side the more traditionalist. So we are fighting for nothing, because at the end of the day, so our customers, the executives, the organizations, so they are waiting for us to deliver. They don't care about you are using Agile. That's for you. That's what I teach the PMP and those courses. I also teach project management course at the university. They said what you're building is a toolbox to resolve a problem. In this case, a business problem. So you need to have all of those in a toolbox that you're going to pick it depending on the context and the situation that you are addressing. But that's not important things. The toolbox is not important thing. The most important thing is that you can resolve and address the problem that you face. And that's the idea. So, but we spend a lot of energy fighting about which one is the best. No one is the best. It depends.
Yeah, and I got reminded of that fairly recently, because I don't know how much you pay attention to my content, but every Monday I break down a movie based off of project management fundamentals. And I broke down The Shawshank Redemption, and I was using it as iterative. He built the plan. Andy Dufresne, he was chipping away at the whole little by little, almost like they were sprints. And then someone commented and said, no, that's Waterfall, because he had his deliverable he had his entire deliverable at the end, escaping, and he had a plan and he did it little by little, but it wasn't iterative because he wasn't really improving on the plan. He was just executing and got the final payoff all at the end, not in the middle. And I was like, that's an interesting perspective. Hadn't thought about that.
Exactly. Yeah, I would say before Agile came around in the 2001, I said I was using Agile without putting the label Agile, because I always think of every time that I have let's say a project to deliver, I always think about, so how can I give you something? It's like when you go to the restaurant, so you have the appetizer. So I always think about that. So how can I give you something and don't think about, because in in that decades, so when you think about a project was long term, 3 years, 2 years. I even I had an implementation of the ERP system for a big bank, and the entire project took like 5 years. Imagine 5 years to we consider the project closed. And then by the time, I think that the world has changed also because of the pace of changing. But before, the people, they were happy to wait 3 years, 1 year. Short time period project was, let's say, a year, and people, they were happy to wait.
Yeah, and now you make someone wait 2 weeks for an update and they lose their mind.
Exactly. Yeah, now it's changing. Yeah, that came to the that you were saying, the crazy world that we are living. That was another thought that I got because I was invited to talk about the future of project management. So and I was driving to the laundry, and somebody said, "But Tony, but the future is not the future anymore. The future is the present." Then I wrote an article. I said, the future is not the future anymore. The future is the present. So what I said that because I was thinking, I always do like a retrospective of my own life when I write. I think that before, when we say future, it's like you need to wait 10 years to see a breakthrough. But we have a breakthrough every day.
Well,
So I haven't digest what happened today, and tomorrow it will be totally different.
so let me throw something at you then, because this is something that I've put this out a couple of times, and I haven't been in the profession long enough to actually know the full ramifications of my theory, but I've said that the latest revolution of AI is a rehash of when the PPM tools first came around post Microsoft Project, because Project was the first, it was its own world. Then we started seeing the revolution of all the all-in-one tools that do everything. And everyone said, those are going to replace the PMs. We're going to need a PMO with one PM to manage the tool, and that's it. And we didn't see the revolution that everyone said, because the people that adopted the tools survived and the people that refused to adopt died off. And I'm saying we're seeing that same thing all over again, just 10 years later with AI adoption, because if you don't understand it, you don't want to adopt it, you don't want to use it, you're going to die off because it's part of the job now. But it's not it's changing the way we do things, but it's not replacing us unless you refuse to adapt.
Yeah, and that have been the same for technology. Everything that happen in the world, the evolution of things, or you adapt, or you take the train at the right time, at the right place, or you're gonna lose it. So the same with AI. The difference, because sometimes I started philosophizing a little bit and thinking about other technology, because we have had, so I had the opportunity to see a lot of breakthrough in my career. But what is the difference with this one? Is like, I think for the first time in the history of evolution of technology, it's like we see that all white collar workers, or let's call it knowledge workers, are threatened by something, by technology. Because before, let's say, we had automation. The automation was threatened to knowledge worker, but still with knowledge worker. For example, accounting. So I remember the accounting department was the one that had the most people in organization. Then we come with automation, the individual, let's say, system. Then the ELP's technology came around. So now we have the automation of the entire operation of the organization, and everything dying into the general ledger. So that automated a lot of people lose their job because they were doing that. But now we are doing hyper automation. So one of my classes in artificial intelligence that I do is neural networks and deep learning. So I see all the potential things that we have, or things that we consider are judgmental, that and really it's not judgmental, it's a repetitive task. So we're taking all of those pieces, all those agents that are being created to replace those functions at all levels. It could be in healthcare, it could be engineering, it could be software development. That it, I would say, you need to know, because as if you're gonna be the captain of a ship, you need to know about water. But I said, with not all the investment of time and knowledge and let's say careers that we have developed. So I can teach someone to be a software developer without really teaching them how to be a software developer. I just provide the basis and the how to create the prompts to develop code in the most complex languages. No Python. Python is easy to learn, but in assembly. And you, with prompting, you can create those languages. So what happened, those people that in college right now, they're going to have a degree in software engineering. So nobody going to hire a software developer and pay that salary when you can have, like you say, you only need pilots that they know how to drive that.
That I'm going to push back on.
Yeah.
Because I've seen articles recently where a lot of the companies laid off a lot of staff saying, well, outsource it with AI. And then they start getting the bills for the credits that they were using to create those AI automations. And they're realizing that the bills are actually more expensive than it would have been to have somebody on staff. And I say that AI is a great shortcut to get the first 70 to 80% of the work done.
Yeah.
But what that means is the deep work starts once the prompt is done. And there's a whole I'm not going to call it a science or an art, but there's a whole thing of prompt engineering is a real thing. And we have to, it's really hot in the PM world now where 20 prompts to change the way you manage your projects and everything. But if you don't understand how those prompts are constructed and what the outputs mean and all those different things that go into that, what happens when you have to change that prompt to tailor something you need if you don't know how to build it or how to use it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the reason that you need to know your subject in anything, because but if I know my subject and then I use AI, so there's a lot of shortcuts that you're gonna do, and that you say that 80%, 70% of my time. So I have the capabilities. That's something that I always think about, because I've been in a C-suite, so working for a different organization. But when we are struggling to make the numbers, we always think about cutting headcounts. And that's something that is happening, and you can see it. I measure, because I have a lot of people reaching out to me to see if I know about opportunity. People are losing jobs every day. And you see a lot of green ribbons around their name in LinkedIn. So that's an indication that something is wrong. But I would say that if you are capable of, let's say, deliver 50% of your productivity, and you can release, let's say, 35%, instead of the company say, okay, now I'm gonna get rid of Tony. So he said, let's invent something that use that time to be more productive or more disruptive on whatever the company does, instead of just cutting. It's I think that like Elon Musk, because he always having ideas, so he always hiring people. But that's the problem that I see, that a lot of the business leaders, they see AI as an opportunity to reduce headcounts. And
yeah, I mean, nobody would have ever predicted that vibe code reviewer would be a real job, but that exists because somebody needs to be able to review the output that knows what they're reading.
Right. Yeah. So I said, for example, about building codes with any of those programs, but that's not new. So in the late 80s, there was a technologies in software development that we call it was named computer aided software engineering, case tools. The case tool, and the promise was, you don't need a software developers. You only need someone that knows the requirements. But probably in our language or Agile, so you only need a PO, product owner, that knows the business needs and talk to the computer. And the case tool, they were generating the code, but requires a lot of engineering about the requirements. It's basically creating a prototype. So it wasn't that easy to create. So the problem, that didn't work. So you don't see any case tool in the market right now. And when you generated the code, because I used to represent a company that they develop an entire suite of those products, starting from the requirement gathering, automating the requirement gathering, all the way to the design until generating the code. So what happened? by the time, so we had limitation with the computer power processing. That was too expensive. If I don't need it, I say, oh my God, he generated a COBOL program. So I said, no, I prefer to write the code because it was so inefficient. So right now, because we have a computer power that you can generate an entire program, but as you say, if you don't know what you're doing as the machine generating that code, it will have a lot of inefficiency.
Yeah,
So
and I think this is a great place for us to pause. And this is where I want to talk about the Patreon that I have, because that's how the audience can help support the show. And that's for $5 a month. You get access to the postmortem interviews, which are bonus conversations with every guest, including Tony. We're going to be talking about why human leadership becomes more important as AI is assuming our administrative workload. And also, after more than 40 years in the profession, what still frustrates Tony in the profession itself? We're going to be talking about those types of things, but I want to move back to talking about, well, actually, I want to shift gears a little bit, because you train for the PM, you train students for the PMP and hold boot camps and all those kinds of things. And I'm really curious about, what are your thoughts? And I know you're going to be somewhat conservative because you're a PMI authorized trainer, but what are your thoughts on the new exam and how it's structured, the changes they made, and that kind of thing?
yeah, well, because of the profession is changing. I would say that the mindset more about focusing on the thing that AI has the potential to automate. And by the way, there's a lot of tools out there that help you to invest very little of time. I remember for me to complete a schedule for a project, maybe take a couple of days or maybe take a week, depending. But now you can just think about minutes, maybe hours. Um, so that is reflected in the version 8 of the project manager. I think this morning I wrote something about that, um, uh, because the what is written starting in version 7, that it was more about because you see in version 7 and now in version 8. So PMI, they start for a system for value delivery. So everything is more around a little bit agile, but more of a hybrid approach, but emphasizing a lot of own leadership. That's the switch. I have someone that I can understand version 7. It's because version 7 is not the traditional project manager, because before in version 6 and the previous versions of the PMBOK, there's basically structures about the same thing: knowledge management areas, processes, and inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. But since version 7, everything changed. So it is more about understanding your stakeholder engagement, understanding what value mean for the organization, and now have all the leadership, the servant leadership, acting as a facilitator. You are not project manager anymore. Now, when you work with agile teams, the teams are self-sufficient, so they are self-managed. So they don't need someone to tell them, you need to do this, you need to do that. So that requires a change in the mindset. I am not the boss anymore. I am not the most important person. So that requires that I need to understand they are the most important person. I only a facilitator. But for those people that they develop and investing all the time around the technical aspects of project management, developing the plans, developing the risk management, tracking tracks, tracking the progress of the project. So now, so what I gonna do? Because I don't know how to do the other things. I think that's the transition and the mindset of the new SM, and also taking into consideration other things that is part of the ecosystem. Because all projects, they live in ecosystem. So you need to know about sustainability. You need to know about enterprise delivery value. It's not just about this piece. So you need to have like a macro view of everything that happens in the organization's system. So that requires like a retraining, and that's how you're gonna have. I see a lot of people that I posted something that I think this is one of the most that I have hundreds, thousands of impressions, because I just say that I was surprised because I only said this is the uh, golden triangle, like the old concepts like scope, time, and budget. But I said now we are heading into the value triangle. So a lot of people was against that. So what are you saying? So if you don't deliver, yeah, but I'm not saying that we're gonna forget about that but that's not important because everybody can do it. So the differentiation will be for those professionals to move in that value-driven mindset. You need to have the talent, yeah, but I don't expect if I hire you as a project manager, I never gonna have in my mind that you can deliver on time according to the budgets, according to the scope. That's a given. But what I would say, we made the difference if you understand the other piece that I'm more interested, delivering outcomes, not output.
So when we start talking about, I guess, going from delivery to value, are we transitioning into a new era, so to speak, of training project managers to think like program managers and preparing them better? Because before, project managers were execution, program were strategy. Mm-hmm. Like that was just the definitive line. And in some organizations, if you were a phenomenal project manager, you became a program manager, but nobody ever taught you how to change that mindset from execution to strategy. Is that kind of the direction that we're going now, is thinking more strategic even at the project level?
Yeah, I even have a name. So I'm working in another framework that I call it, instead of being named as a project leader, project managers, I would say the next level will be a value architect, enterprise value architect. So that requires the connection and closing the gap between strategies and execution. So that's how I call it. So the metrics will be different. So for example, I talking to someone the other day, I said, are you measuring decision latency? Because at the end of the day, everything that we do is to make better decisions. We need to make better decisions as a project managers, as a project leader. So are you measuring the latency? That's when you add value. And then you can convert that into dollars and cents so people understand. If I save you, let's say 30 minutes, what is the cost, opportunity cost of those 30 minutes?
Well, it depends on the blended rate of everyone in the room.
Exactly. But that's so that we are it's a different words, and we need to move with the flow. So that's the words they're asking for.
Well, one thing you just brought up there that it's something I've been doing for a long time, and I wrote about it recently, was building decision timeline. Like if you know your decision maker and their thought process around decisions, and some leaders take 2 weeks to decide regardless of what the decision is. You could ask them, what are we doing for lunch? And they'll take an hour to decide, or a key decision could take 2 weeks every time. I said, build that buffer into your schedule in the beginning and call it. decision research, whatever it may be.
Right.
And I got a lot of pushback from people saying, well, that's a problem with the decision leader and delays and stuff. And I was like, no, because you work within the frameworks of what's there. Because as a decision maker, we've all been on both sides of the coin. You can't rush someone who's not ready to make a decision to choose something. And if you do, odds are you're not going to like what you get.
Exactly. But at the same time, you need to understand why decisions are taking longer.
Mm-hmm.
Those you said, so you have different options for lunch. So I go there, so I prepare my own food. So now we go into another trending topics is that we call it data-driven organization. So we need to have the evidence, let's call it the data, the evidence that help me to decide faster. So that's another trending things that we need to know about data analytics. That's a skill, whole set of skill, how to make sense of data. So I give it to you. So Trevor, you don't need to think anymore. You have the data there. So why you need to delay that decisions?
Well,
But
you bring that up, but I actually had one of those people as a guest a few weeks back. Tom Hinkle was on, and he is not a project professional, but he is a data person. And he even made the case for why Excel and Excel adjacent products are still relevant in 2026. But he brought up the whole idea of metrics, data, and the argument between vanity versus value.
Mm-hmm.
And we deal with that as professionals all the time because we go into our meetings and we got to decide, do we want to take the hits and say the project is off track by 2 weeks and here's where we're over budget and all these things? Yeah. Or do we want to massage the data a little bit to say, instead of bright red, we're soft yellow and we're getting by and we'll whitewash it, but we can find the data to support that.
Yeah, exactly. And also changing the wording.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in my program, the Project Management Office Business Practitioner, so we have people to get the credential, they need to pass an exam. And after that, you need to present a custom. And someone in the custom, he presented a figure. They say 100,000, for example. The way that he framed that saving was only in the dollars and cents, but it was identifying an efficiency. So let's say that you're gonna talk to someone. So let's say your audience or the executives. So you're telling them that you are saving this amount of money or hours because we were inefficient. You're telling me that it's so you have somebody in the room that we say they're gonna kill your idea right away because you are blaming on them. So you're thinking that you are doing something good for the organization, but it's not. So how are you gonna frame that as an opportunity?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that rule or process named after somebody who's grandfathered in as an executive now. And you talk about how that's no longer valid from 20 years ago.
Yeah. But I thought instead of calling like resource inefficiency or resource management, it's a capacity recover. That is a wording at the same time.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the same, but in doing what I'm proposing to do, we are recovering capacity to do something else of value. So it's the same thing, but the framing, how you present the idea to your executive will make a huge difference because you are speaking the business language. If I said we are improving our efficiency, or they want, so a lot of people, they say to make faster decision. You don't telling me anything. Faster decision, what it is?
Faster than what?
Faster than what? Exactly. And sometimes we don't. And so that you mentioned, sometimes we don't want to make faster decision. Sometimes we don't want to make a faster decision. We need to wait. For example, when you do negotiation, that's a technique. So I take my time to make you to rethink and provide me a better deal. So, but I talk a lot about how we speak the language of the business. That's how I do in this program, the PMO business practitioner, is how can we frame everything. I put everybody think, okay, that's how you're telling me. How you will say that to a CEO, to the CIO, that they understand and they those words resonate on them.
Yeah, you have to tailor your approach to your audience. And I'm actually, I don't know if by the time this airs, I've written it or not, but I've been working on a piece about how when I'm running a meeting, my audience is 3 to 5 people max is who I am specifically talking to in that meeting. There could be 40 people in the room. Don't care about the rest, because I need my message to land with those key stakeholders or key sponsors or key audience members more than I do everybody else. Because when you make messages generic to a mass audience, you're making a generic message of, we're going to improve efficiency. Well, improving efficiency means nothing. But if I say to those 3 people that are making the decision of whether or not I'm going to get budget for my project, we're going to speed up the sales process for XYZ widgets in the timeline that is normally 6 months. We're going to make the sales process 5 months. Now I've got their attention and I'm speaking to them to listen.
Definitely. And you have the tool. You have the tool to make those predictions. And then that's the type of thing that you're going to predict. If I'm delivering earlier, so let's say the normal plan, we deliver in 6 months. But you say, let's say a week. So I pick on that week. What's going to be the saving? What's going to be the projection, the opportunity cost of saving 1 week of work? I don't going to say, okay, we say 1 week, we say 2 weeks. So that doesn't sound well on them. That, okay, so what?
But how much is an FTE blended rate for 2 weeks?
Exactly. So the opportunity cost. So we have the pros on the hand of the customer. So when those 2 weeks, we're gonna make, let's say, $250,000 more. So they, oh wow, $250,000 more, or 200,000, even 100,000 more than you anticipated. Everybody gonna put attention to you.
Well, Tony, it has been a pleasure chatting with you, and we need to get to my personalized question for you, because every guest gets one based off of their personality, and this is not a trivia question. Over the course of your career, what is the dumbest new thing you've seen in project management come out and actually stick around?
I would say that we are still lacking on communication skill. So I consider I'm a people person, but I think that we don't have the patience to listen. So active listening is something that people are losing. I don't know, because of the pace of the changes. So it's like you want to be more held than you be more a listener. And that's something that's I have seen a lot of people doing a bad job because of that. They don't listen. So you react to something. But you need to use your brain to do, I would say, the judgment to make before you make an action. So before you walk, you need to think about what's going to be my next step. But it's about, that's what I learned in my career, is to have the patience to listen first. The other day I was watching, I like to watch a lot of those clips from leaders. John Maxwell, he will say, people, you need to listen more than you speak. So that's something that they still we have where you can see it. Everybody saying, so what can we improve? Communication. But we still have a communication. So I'm 44, 45 years in the workplace. I still listening to the same thing. But it
Yeah.
is about the empathy. That's the E on my book. The empathy is about being with you. So how can I serve you? Also having that can do mentality. But that's something that we still have the same problems. And you see a lot of people writing about the communication.
And what's funny is odds are those same people aren't the ones listening when somebody responds, comments on their post.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a whole another topic I always say that it's easy to create content when it's written because I don't know what your process, but I write stuff, schedule it, and then a week for the week upcoming. So then the next week when I'm going to go post it, I'm like, oh yeah, I wrote that. And I've got to reread it to remember what it is that I wrote.
Yes. Yeah. It takes a lot of time. Some people, they see at you that you are very active in posting. But if you do it responsibly, every time that I post something, I track it until certain times. There will be when you don't have more engagement, but I check what people say.
Oh yeah.
But I'm learning. For me, it's a learning process because I read every comment,
Mm-hmm.
and that give me a lot of new information for more content development and also to learn from myself. That's like I have a conversation with you. So, but that requires the time that you need to chase those posting
Yep.
the content. So I have a calendar, so I have everything. I know when everything gonna come up. So I do scheduling too. Sometimes I schedule it for a month ahead because I travel too much, but it's easier when I'm travel in those places. I say, okay, this week I was talking about, let's say, Pinball version 8. So then I go and read all the questions, respond to the people.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time. So sometimes people, they don't think that how much effort we put
Yeah.
on that things.
I had a whole post about, I've had one viral post in probably a year and a half of solid content posting. And I wrote, we talk about how much everybody wants to chase virality and all those metrics. But I also, no one, unless you've did it, it takes a week of your life consumed by one post. And that's all you spend your time doing is responding to comments on that one post. And by the time you're done, it's run its course. You're just like, please let me never discuss this topic ever again.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing that I do, I like to write. I am old fashioned. I think that is that the way that I learned. I like to
Mm-hmm.
write it. Maybe sometimes it's the same thing that I see in the book, or also I highlight everything. So I take always notes, because I travel a lot. On the plane, I always have a goal. Or
Yep.
I take a couple of books, or my backlogs, I have many books I haven't read. I have it in hard copy. And then I take my notes. So if I am the flights, I'm writing. So anything that comes to my mind, sometimes it's observing, because when I go to those places, I like to observe how people behave, what
Yep.
people say, and then I take notes, and that give me a lot of information for content. And also when I am speaking, it's like I'm telling stories.
Yeah. My family has learned the hard way that I've got a notes app on my phone, and they know that if they see me run to grab my phone and start typing away, they're like, all right, he got an idea and he's got to write it down. And,
Yeah.
and it's not the most healthy habit, but it's something that they've learned. That's just part of what it is of being a creator, so to speak. And I think that's a great place for us to wrap. So why don't you tell the audience where they can find you, what you're up to, all that great stuff?
Yeah, for people, so I say that my second home is LinkedIn because I invested a lot of time. So I work almost 24/7. I say when you get older, after 20, I like a 3 times 20. So I spend most of my time in LinkedIn. So, sometimes I use Instagram, but they can find me in LinkedIn. Just so you look for Dr. Tony Prensa. And so
Links in the show notes.
yeah, I also I had the time, or I made the time to everyone that DM me, so I respond. So I have a meeting, so I have a lot of mentees that I give you. So I say that I'm working more for legacy than so. So I like to help people. That's the thing. I have been blessed to have a successful professional career, and that's what I'm passing on to the next generation. Yeah.
You
Yeah,
got you got
yeah.
selected for Global Summit already.
Yeah, so I am a professor, no professor, they don't call it professor. I am instructor for the PMI, the training series. So I speak about implementing a strategic project management office. Some people go to Detroit, so I'm gonna be there delivering.
Well, I think that's a great place for us to wrap. And I want to most importantly thank the Patreon subscribers for continuing to help fund the show and keep this thing going. I want to thank most importantly too the listeners, because without you, this is just me talking to friends in a microphone and going out into the internet with nobody listening. So if you're listening and you enjoy this type of content, please check the back catalog out. Tons of great guests, tons of great episodes. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. It's the best value in town. That's all free stuff. And it's available on, we're available on all the major platforms. So I'll end like I always do with may all your deliverables be on time, your budget's in the black, and your scope not creeping. For Dr. Tony Prensa, I'm still Trevor, and I'm still the disgruntled PM. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much.